Standing beneath the vast English sky, where ancient stones pierce the horizon like sleeping giants, lies a monument that has guarded its secrets for nearly 5,000 years. But what if everything we thought we knew about Stonehenge was wrong? What if the true story hidden beneath these weathered megaliths is so extraordinary that it would force us to completely rewrite the history of human civilization? Tonight, we're going to uncover discoveries so recent that most textbooks haven't even caught up yet. Revelations that suggest our prehistoric ancestors possessed knowledge and capabilities that dwarf what we believed possible. And perhaps most shocking of all, evidence that Stonehenge was never meant to be just a monument. It was a sophisticated machine designed to harness the very movements of the cosmos itself. Close your eyes and imagine standing in the center of that stone circle on the longest night of the year, watching as the dying sun aligns perfectly with massive trilithons that have stood sentinel for millennia. But here's what will make your blood run cold. The builders of Stonehenge didn't just understand astronomy. They encoded multiple solar calendars into the very architecture, creating a prehistoric computer that tracked celestial events with precision that wouldn't be matched for thousands of years. Welcome to Bedtime History, where we don't just retell the past, we unearth the truths that have been buried in silence. I'm your guide through tonight's journey into the shadows of time, and what we're about to explore together will change everything you thought you knew about ancient Britain. Because the real mystery of Stonehenge isn't just how they built it, it's why they needed to build something so impossibly complex, and what they were trying to tell us across the vast expanse of time. But before we dive into the mind-bending discoveries that are rewriting history books as we speak, let me share something that will give you chills. Just this year, in 2024, scientists made a discovery so profound it sent shockwaves through the archaeological world. They found that one of Stonehenge's most sacred stones, the massive 6-ton altar stone that sits at the very heart of the monument, didn't come from Wales, as everyone believed for over a century. It came from Scotland, not just anywhere in Scotland, but from a region over 750 kilometers away. That's like dragging a stone the weight of 3 cars from Edinburgh to London, using nothing but Neolithic technology. Think about that for a moment. These weren't primitive hunter-gatherers scratching out a living in mud huts. These were master engineers, logisticians, and astronomers who somehow coordinated the transport of massive megaliths across the entire length of Britain. The implications are staggering, and they're just the beginning of what we're going to uncover tonight. The discovery of the Scottish altar stone isn't just about geography, it's about a complete revolution in how we understand prehistoric society. When researchers at Curtin University analyzed mineral grains within fragments of this sacred stone, they weren't just solving a geological puzzle. They were uncovering evidence of trade networks, social organization, and technological sophistication that shouldn't have existed in 2500 BCE. Picture the planning required for such an undertaking. Someone, somewhere in ancient Scotland, identified this specific stone as worthy of transport. Teams of people quarried it from the bedrock, somehow moved it hundreds of miles across treacherous terrain, and positioned it with mathematical precision at the exact center of what would become the world's most famous stone circle. This wasn't random. This wasn't accidental. This was a deliberate act, requiring coordination between distant communities separated by mountains, rivers, and hostile wilderness. But here's where the story gets truly extraordinary. The journey that stone made 750 kilometers from northeastern Scotland to Salisbury Plain would have been nearly impossible overland. The most likely route would have required sophisticated boats capable of navigating coastal waters while carrying multi-ton cargo. We're talking about prehistoric maritime technology that rivals anything we see in the ancient Mediterranean. These weren't simple dugout canoes. These were vessels engineered for heavy transport across dangerous seas. And that raises the question that keeps archaeologists awake at night. If they could transport 6-ton stones from Scotland to England, what else were they capable of? What other impossible feats have we dismissed as fantasy, simply because we couldn't imagine how ancient people might have accomplished them. The timing of the altar stone's arrival adds another layer of mystery. Radiocarbon dating suggests it was installed sometime between 2620 and 2480 BCE, during a period of massive social upheaval across Britain. This was when new populations were arriving from continental Europe, people archaeologists call the Beaker folk for their distinctive pottery. Within just 16 generations, the genetic makeup of Britain's population shifted dramatically, with newcomer ancestry dominating the gene pool by 90%. This demographic transformation wasn't peaceful integration, it was replacement on an almost unimaginable scale. And right in the middle of this chaos, someone decided to rebuild Stonehenge, incorporating stones from the farthest reaches of the British Isles. Professor Mike Parker Pearson of UCL believes this wasn't coincidence, it was deliberate political theatre. Stonehenge wasn't just a religious monument, it was a symbol of unity, designed to bind together diverse populations under a shared identity. Think about the message that would have sent. Here was a structure incorporating surrounding downs. Every major region of Britain was represented in this sacred space. It was saying, we are one people, connected by something greater than tribal boundaries or ancestral territories. We are bound. Scottish stone revelation is just the tip of an iceberg that stones from Wales, Scotland, and local sarsen from the gets more astonishing the deeper we dig. Because modern technology has revealed that beneath the Stonehenge, we can see lies a vast underground complex of monuments, buildings, and ritual structures that have remained hidden for millennia. We're talking about 17 separate ritual monuments, massive timber circles, process, House of the Dead, all invisible to the naked eye, but mapped in stunning detail by ground-penetrating radar and electromagnetic surveys. The scale is breathtaking. The underground discoveries include evidence of a nearby mile-long superhenge at Durrington Walls that was once flanked by as many as 60 gigantic stone or timber columns. Some of these monuments may still lie buried beneath the soil, waiting for excavation. But perhaps most mysterious of all are the massive underground shafts that form a perfect circle around the Durrington Walls complex, each hole over 10 meters in diameter and at least 5 meters deep. Their straight sides filled with loose soil. These aren't natural formations. They're engineered structures that required precise planning and enormous labor investment. Someone mapped out a circle with a diameter of over 2 kilometers and then coordinated the digging of dozens of massive pits at exact intervals. The precision is extraordinary, the purpose completely unknown. Were they boundary markers? Astronomical observation points? Something else entirely? What we're looking at isn't just Stonehenge as we know it, a circle of standing stones on Salisbury Plain. We're looking at evidence of a prehistoric ceremonial complex that extended for miles in every direction, incorporating dozens of monuments, thousands of burial mounds, and underground features of staggering complexity. The visible Stonehenge was merely the centerpiece of a sacred together by the stones themselves, and by the cosmic order they represent, but the landscape that represented one of humanity's first attempts at large-scale architectural planning. And here's what will really blow your mind. Recent analysis has revealed that this entire complex was designed around not one, but two separate astronomical alignments. Everyone knows about the famous summer solstice sunrise alignment, when the first rays of the longest day shine directly into the heart of the monument. But there's anal avenues, and what archaeologists are calling a second, hidden alignment that's been overlooked for centuries, a winter solstice axis that transforms the entire site into a cosmic calendar of unprecedented sophistication. This secondary alignment runs along a northwest-southeast axis, pointing directly toward the winter solstice sunrise over Conybeare Hill and the summer solstice sunset into Fargo Wood. But here's the truly mind-bending part. This isn't just a coincidental sightline. The builders deliberately angled the massive altar stone at precisely 80 degrees to encode this secondary axis, into the monument's very foundation. For over a century, archaeologists have drawn plans showing the altar stone positioned at 90 degrees to the main solstice axis. They were wrong. Every reconstruction, every textbook diagram, every tourist guide has been perpetuating an error that hid one of Stonehenge's most sophisticated features. The stone isn't positioned randomly, it's a precisely calibrated component in what can only be described as a prehistoric astronomical computer. When you stand at the center of Stonehenge and look along the length of that 16-foot altar stone, you're looking directly along the line that connects winter solstice sunrise to summer solstice sunset. The two axes, primary and secondary, intersect exactly over the center of this massive Scottish sandstone block. The mathematical precision required to achieve this alignment suggests a level of astronomical knowledge that rivals anything we see in ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia. But why did they care so much about the winter solstice? The answer lies in understanding just how terrifying winter was for prehistoric people. Imagine living in a world with no electric lights, no central heating, no grocery stores filled with food shipped from around the globe. As autumn faded into winter, the days grew shorter, the nights stretched longer, and the sun, the source of all warmth and life, seemed to be dying. The psychological impact cannot be overstated. Night after night, the sun would set a little earlier, rise a little later. Temperatures plummeted. Food stores dwindled. The ground froze solid, making it impossible to grow anything. And then, around the winter solstice, something truly terrifying would happen. The sun would appear to stop moving entirely, hanging low on the horizon, as if it had lost the strength to continue its journey across the sky. To people whose survival depended entirely on the sun's return, this must have felt like watching the world die. But here's what makes Stonehenge so remarkable. Its builders understood that this apparent death was actually a moment of rebirth. They knew that after the solstice, the days would begin to lengthen again. The sun would regain its strength, spring would return, life would continue. And they built a monument to capture that moment of cosmic renewal with breathtaking precision. On the winter solstice, as the sun sets through the gap between the two largest trilithons, its dying light falls directly across the altar stone before disappearing below the horizon. But this isn't just pretty symbolism, it's a precisely calculated astronomical event that required advanced mathematical understanding to achieve. The builders had to account for the Earth's axial tilt, the gradual precession of the equinoxes, and the specific latitude of Salisbury Plain. They had to understand that the angle between solstice sunrise and sunset positions would be exactly 80 degrees at this location during this time period. They had to coordinate the quarrying and transport of massive stones from hundreds of miles away and position them with millimeter precision to create these alignments. This level of sophistication challenges everything we thought we knew about Neolithic Britain. These weren't primitive farmers stumbling through life guided by superstition. These were master astronomers, engineers, and mathematicians whose understanding of celestial mechanics wouldn't be equaled in Europe for another 3,000 years. Recent discoveries have revealed even more layers to this astronomical complexity. Laser surveys of the monument show that the stones framing the solstice alignments were worked and shaped with extraordinary care. The builders used hammerstones to create perfectly vertical surfaces that would frame the sun's movement with mathematical precision. The smaller bluestones were arranged to reflect the solstice axis, with carefully planned gaps in the outer circle to enhance the astronomical sightlines. But the alignments don't stop at the stone circle itself. The entire surrounding landscape was incorporated into this cosmic design. The 4 station stones are positioned in a precise rectangle that mirrors the solstice angles. The first section of the Stonehenge Avenue, the ancient processional route to the River Avon, follows the same alignment. Even the surrounding burial mounds and ritual monuments seem to have been positioned with reference to these celestial events. What we're looking at is evidence of a prehistoric culture that didn't just observe the heavens, they built their entire sacred landscape to mirror the movements of the cosmos. They created a terrestrial reflection of celestial order, a place where earth and sky intersected in perfect harmony. And here's where the story gets even stranger. Analysis of the cremated remains found in the Aubrey Holes, those 56 mysterious pits surrounding the stone circle, has revealed that Stonehenge served as a cemetery for over 700 years. But this wasn't just any burial ground. This was the largest known cemetery from the 3rd millennium BCE in all of Britain, containing the remains of at least 58 individuals from across the British Isles. Isotope analysis of bones and teeth has shown that many of these people weren't locals. They came from Wales, Scotland, and other distant regions. Some of them possibly the very individuals who helped transport the stones from their remote quarries. The radiocarbon dates are telling. Many of these burials cluster around 3000 BCE, which coincides exactly with the quarrying dates for the Welsh bluestones. Think about what this means. People were travelling hundreds of miles to be buried at Stonehenge during the monument's construction phase. They were coming from the same regions that provided the stones, and they were being cremated and interred with elaborate ritual. This wasn't coincidental tourism. This was organized pilgrimage on a scale that suggests Stonehenge's reputation as a sacred site had spread across the entire British Isles. But why were they coming? What made this particular spot so special that people would undertake dangerous journeys across prehistoric Britain to reach it? The answer may lie in the stones themselves, particularly those enigmatic bluestones from Wales. Recent research has revealed that these smaller megaliths possess extraordinary acoustic properties when struck. They ring like bells with a clear, penetrating tone that can be heard for miles. The discovery isn't accidental. The Preseli Hills, where the bluestones were quarried, are rich in rocks with these unusual acoustic qualities. The local Welsh village of Menclochog, which literally means ringing stones, used similar bluestones as church bells until the 18th century. Our ancestors weren't just building with stone, they were building with sound. Imagine standing at Stonehenge on a misty dawn, striking one of these bluestones with a simple hammer. The sound that emerges isn't the dull thud you'd expect from ordinary rock, it's a pure, crystalline note that cuts through the air like a bell cast in bronze. That sound would have carried across the landscape for miles, announcing to anyone within hearing distance that something sacred was happening at the stone circle. But here's where this acoustic discovery leads us down a rabbit hole that gets stranger by the minute. Researchers in archaeoacoustics, yes, that's a real field, have found that Stonehenge's entire circular design may have been engineered to create specific sound effects. The massive trilithons don't just frame astronomical alignments, they act as acoustic chambers that amplify and focus sound waves in ways that seem almost supernatural. Stephen Waller, who studies the relationship between ancient monuments and sound, has proposed something that sounds like science fiction but is rooted in hard acoustic science. He suggests that if two pipers were playing in an open field, a listener walking around them would notice strange dead zones where the sound waves cancel each other out, creating pockets of eerie silence. The positioning of Stonehenge's massive stones creates a similar effect, except instead of competing sound waves, it's the stones themselves that create these acoustic phenomena. This isn't just theoretical speculation. Modern sound engineers have tested the monument's acoustic properties and found that it functions like a giant amplifier. Sounds produced within the circle are enhanced and focused, while external noise is muted and filtered. Stand in the center and whisper, and your voice carries to every part of the monument with startling clarity. Shout from outside the circle, and the stones seem to swallow the sound entirely. The implications are mind-bending. Our ancestors didn't just build an astronomical observatory, they created an acoustic instrument of enormous complexity. Those ringing bluestones weren't just building materials, they were the components of a prehistoric sound system that could have been used for ritual, ceremony, or communication across vast distances. When you combine the visual spectacle of perfect solar alignments with the haunting resonance of struck stones, you begin to understand why people traveled hundreds of miles to experience Stonehenge. But the acoustic mystery deepens when we consider the legends that have surrounded stone circles for millennia. Across Britain and Ireland, these ancient monuments are traditionally known as piper stones, and folklore consistently associates them with mysterious music heard at dawn or dusk. Could these legends preserve actual memories of how our ancestors used these sites? Were the stones literally singing to our prehistoric ancestors during their ceremonies? The answer may lie in another shocking discovery that's emerged from recent archaeological analysis. Evidence suggests that ancient visitors to Stonehenge were deliberately chipping away fragments from the bluestones, possibly to use as talismans or healing stones. These aren't random acts of vandalism, they're systematic removal of stone fragments that show clear signs of intentional breakage pattern. This brings us to one of the most controversial theories about Stonehenge's true purpose, that it served as a prehistoric healing center, a Neolithic equivalent of Lourdes, where pilgrims came seeking miraculous cures. The evidence is circumstantial but compelling. Analysis of the cremated remains found at the site shows an unusually high percentage of people who suffered from serious illnesses or injuries during their lifetime. These weren't healthy individuals dying of old age. These were people who had endured significant physical trauma or chronic conditions. Why would sick and injured people from across Britain make the dangerous journey to Stonehenge if they weren't seeking some form of healing? The answer may lie in the unique properties of those Welsh bluestones. In medieval times, stones from the Preseli Hills were credited with magical healing powers. Local traditions spoke of waters that flowed over these rocks gaining curative properties. Could our Neolithic ancestors have shared similar beliefs? The healing theory gains additional weight when we consider the monument's association with water. The River Avon, which flows near Stonehenge, was clearly important to the site's builders. They constructed the Stonehenge Avenue as a processional route leading directly to the river. Recent archaeological work has revealed evidence of significant activity along this waterway, including the remains of what appear to be ritual deposits and offerings cast into the flowing water. Water has been associated with healing and purification in human cultures for thousands of years. The combination of sacred stones with healing waters and precise astronomical alignments would have created a powerful nexus of supernatural forces in the minds of prehistoric people. Add the haunting sound of ringing stones and the visual drama of perfect solar alignments, and you have all the ingredients for a pilgrimage site of extraordinary power. But even as we're unraveling these ancient mysteries, Stonehenge continues to guard its deepest secrets with stubborn persistence. The monument we see today represents only the final phase of a construction project that spanned over 1,500 years. Beneath the current stone circle lie the foundations of earlier structures, some dating back to 3,100 BCE, making Stonehenge older than the pyramids of Egypt. Each phase of construction seems to have involved different groups of people with varying levels of astronomical sophistication. The earliest builders created a simple earthwork enclosure with 56 mysterious pits, the Aubrey Holes, arranged in a perfect circle. These holes were clearly significant, but their purpose remains one of archaeology's great unsolved puzzles. Were they designed to hold wooden posts for astronomical observations? Cremated remains for ritualistic purposes? Something else entirely? What we do know is that whoever dug those holes understood advanced mathematics. The spacing is so precise that it couldn't have been achieved without sophisticated surveying techniques. Someone mapped out a perfect circle with a diameter of over 300 feet and marked 56 equally spaced points around its circumference. The mathematical precision required for this feat suggests these early builders possessed knowledge that wouldn't be codified in European mathematics for another 2,000 years. The mystery deepens when we consider the number 56 itself. Why that specific count? Some researchers have suggested it relates to eclipse prediction, that the Aubrey Holes formed part of an ancient computer designed to calculate when the sun or moon would be obscured by celestial shadows. Others believe the number has significance we've lost to time, perhaps connected to calendar systems or astronomical cycles that prehistoric astronomers tracked with methods we can't even imagine. As construction progressed through the centuries, successive generations added layers of complexity that transformed Stonehenge from a simple earthwork into the sophisticated astronomical instrument we see today. The massive sarsen stones, some weighing over 40 tons, were hauled from quarries at least 15 miles away and shaped with extraordinary precision using only stone hammers and wooden wedges. The engineering challenges were staggering. These weren't just heavy rocks dragged across the landscape and plopped into holes. Each stone was carefully worked to specific dimensions, with mortise and tenon joints carved into the megaliths to lock the horizontal lintels in place. The builders had to calculate load-bearing requirements, wind resistance, and ground stability to ensure their monument would survive for millennia. They succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. Despite earthquakes, storms, ice ages, and human interference, Stonehenge still stands nearly 5,000 years later, its alignment still precise, its mysteries still intact. The monument they created has become humanity's most enduring puzzle, a testament to capabilities we're only beginning to understand. Yet for all our technological sophistication, for all our satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar and isotope analysis, Stonehenge continues to mock our attempts at complete comprehension. Every answer we uncover seems to spawn 3 new questions. Every mystery we solve reveals deeper layers of complexity that challenge our assumptions about prehistoric intelligence and capability. And perhaps that's exactly what the builders intended. Perhaps Stonehenge was designed not just as an astronomical observatory or healing center or unification symbol, but as an eternal question mark carved in stone, a monument that would force future generations to confront the humbling reality that our ancestors were far more sophisticated than we ever imagined. Standing among those ancient stones as darkness falls and stars emerge overhead, you can almost feel the weight of those accumulated mysteries pressing down through the centuries. Somewhere, in the shadows between science and speculation, between archaeology and imagination, the true story of Stonehenge waits to be discovered. But our journey through these ancient mysteries has only just begun, because the deepest secrets of Stonehenge aren't carved in stone or buried in the earth, they're written in the stars themselves, in patterns of light and shadow that have been playing out above Salisbury Plain for thousands of years, waiting for someone patient enough to decode their meaning. The celestial choreography that unfolds above Stonehenge doesn't end with solstice alignments and acoustic mysteries. Recent astronomical calculations have revealed something that will make your spine tingle. The monument functions as a prehistoric eclipse predictor of breathtaking accuracy. Those 56 Aubrey Holes that have puzzled archaeologists for decades weren't random. They form a counting system that could track the complex 18.5-year cycle of lunar eclipses with mathematical precision that wouldn't be matched by European astronomers until the Renaissance. Picture this: ancient astronomers moving markers around those holes like pieces on a cosmic chessboard, calculating when the moon would bleed red in the night sky, or when the sun would be devoured by shadow during daylight hours. These weren't superstitious rituals, they were sophisticated computational exercises that required understanding celestial mechanics at a level that challenges everything we thought we knew about Stone Age intelligence. But here's where the story takes a turn that borders on the impossible. The builders didn't just track eclipses. They incorporated stellar alignments into the monument that suggest they were mapping the entire night sky with precision that rivals modern observatories. The avenue leading away from Stonehenge doesn't just point toward the river. When extended across the landscape, it aligns perfectly with the rising point of the star Sirius as it appeared 5,000 years ago. Sirius wasn't just any star to ancient peoples, it was the brightest object in the night sky, a celestial beacon that marked seasonal changes and guided navigation across vast distances. The fact that Stonehenge's builders incorporated its position into their monument's design suggests they understood stellar precession, the gradual shift in star positions that occurs over thousands of years due to Earth's wobbling axis. This level of astronomical sophistication is staggering. Tracking stellar precession requires observations spanning multiple generations, careful record-keeping, and mathematical calculations of extraordinary complexity. We're talking about prehistoric astronomers who could predict the future positions of stars with accuracy that wouldn't be achieved again in Europe until the work of Hipparchus in ancient Greece, over 2,000 years later. The implications ripple outward like stones cast into still water. If Stonehenge's builders could track stellar precession, what other astronomical phenomena were they monitoring? Recent computer modeling has suggested that the monument's geometry might encode cycles of Venus, Mars, and even the outer planets visible to naked eye observation. The mathematical relationships embedded in the stone circle's proportions seem to reflect orbital periods and synodic cycles that shouldn't have been known to Neolithic astronomers. Yet the evidence keeps mounting. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed that the avenue extending from Stonehenge follows natural ridges in the landscape that create artificial horizons perfectly positioned for astronomical observation. These ridges block out foreground distractions while providing clear sight lines to specific points on the horizon where celestial bodies rise and set during significant astronomical events. The builders weren't just working with the landscape, they were reading it like an astronomical instrument. Every hill, every valley, every natural feature within miles of Stonehenge seems to have been incorporated into a vast observational system that turned the entire region into a prehistoric planetarium. Standing at the monument's center, an ancient astronomer could track the movements of sun, moon, planets, and stars with precision that rivals anything achieved by later civilizations. But the astronomical connections run even deeper. Recent analysis of stone circles across Britain has revealed that many of them share geometric relationships with Stonehenge that suggest coordinated construction spanning centuries and vast distances. It's as if our ancestors built a network of interconnected observatories, each one calibrated to track specific celestial events, while contributing to a larger understanding of cosmic cycles. The implications are mind-bending. We're looking at evidence of prehistoric scientific collaboration on a scale that rivals modern international research projects. Communities separated by hundreds of miles and multiple generations were apparently working together to solve astronomical problems that wouldn't be tackled again until the rise of professional astronomy in medieval Islamic centers of learning. This network theory gains additional support from the isotope analysis of cremated remains found at stone circles across Britain. The chemical signatures locked in ancient bones tell a story of remarkable mobility. People were traveling regularly between distant monuments, carrying with them knowledge, techniques, and possibly astronomical observations that contributed to an accumulating body of prehistoric science. What we're witnessing is nothing less than the birth of systematic scientific inquiry in human civilization. These weren't isolated tribes making random observations of the night sky. This was organized research conducted by communities that understood the value of long-term data collection and intergenerational knowledge transfer. They were building databases of astronomical information using methods that wouldn't be formalized until the scientific revolution thousands of years later. The social implications are equally staggering. Coordinating observations across multiple sites would have required communication networks, shared standards of measurement, and agreed-upon methods of record-keeping. We're looking at evidence of prehistoric institutions that functioned like ancient academies, preserving and transmitting specialized knowledge across generations of scholar-priests. These weren't simple farmers who occasionally glanced at the sky. These were professional astronomers whose entire social role revolved around understanding and predicting celestial events. They held positions of enormous responsibility within their communities, serving as keepers of cosmic order who could determine the proper timing for planting, harvesting, and ritual observances. The pressure must have been immense. In a world where survival depended on agricultural success, the ability to predict seasonal changes with accuracy could mean the difference between abundance and starvation. The astronomer priests of Stonehenge weren't just tracking celestial mechanics for intellectual curiosity. They were performing calculations that their community's survival depended upon. This adds a chilling dimension to the monument's purpose. Those perfect astronomical alignments weren't just beautiful displays of ancient engineering, they were life or death calculations carved in stone. Every solstice alignment, every eclipse prediction, every stellar observation represented accumulated wisdom that communities had paid for with generations of careful observation and mathematical refinement. The stakes were so high that failure could destroy entire civilizations. Get the planting season wrong and crops fail. Miscalculate the onset of winter and communities starve. Fail to predict eclipses and social order collapses as people lose faith in their leaders' connection to cosmic forces. The astronomer priests of Stonehenge carried the weight of their world on their shoulders, and they responded by building the most sophisticated astronomical instrument in prehistoric Europe. But even as we're decoding these ancient achievements, new mysteries emerge that push the boundaries of credibility even further. Electromagnetic surveys of the Stonehenge landscape have detected anomalous readings that suggest the presence of unknown structures buried at depths that conventional archaeology hasn't even attempted to explore. We're talking about features located tens of meters underground, far below the reach of normal excavation techniques. As we reach the end of our journey through time, standing once more beneath those eternal stars that guided our ancestors' hands, we're left with a truth that should humble us all. Stonehenge isn't just a monument to the past, it's a mirror, reflecting capabilities we've barely begun to comprehend. These weren't primitive people building crude stone circles. They were master astronomers, engineers, and visionaries who created a machine designed to outlast empires and speak across millennia. Every discovery we've explored tonight, from Scottish stones transported impossible distances to acoustic properties that turned megaliths into musical instruments, from underground complexes that dwarf the visible monument to astronomical alignments of staggering precision, forces us to confront an uncomfortable reality. We are not the pinnacle of human achievement we imagined ourselves to be. We are simply the latest chapter in a story that began when our ancestors first looked up at the night sky and dared to decode its mysteries. The builders of Stonehenge left us more than stone and shadow. They left us a challenge carved in megalithic permanence to recognize that human ingenuity, curiosity, and collaborative spirit have always been our greatest tools for understanding the cosmos. In an age when we often feel disconnected from the natural world, Stonehenge reminds us that our ancestors built their entire civilization around the rhythms of earth and sky, creating harmony between human ambition and cosmic order. But perhaps the most profound mystery isn't what Stonehenge was designed to do, it's what it continues to do. Even now, nearly 5,000 years later, it draws us into its gravitational pull of wonder. It forces us to ask questions that pierce through our modern arrogance and remind us that knowledge isn't just about what we know, it's about recognizing how much we still don't know. Standing in that sacred circle as stars wheel overhead, you can almost hear the whispered voices of those ancient astronomers, still calculating, still observing, still reaching across the void of time to share their greatest discovery, that we are all connected to something infinitely larger than ourselves. The same stars that guided their hands still shine above us. The same sun that aligned with their trilithons still marks the turning of seasons. The same cosmic dance that inspired their monument still unfolds in the darkness above Salisbury Plain. Stonehenge endures not because it was built to last, but because it was built to remember. It remembers a time when humans understood their place in the cosmic order, when communities could coordinate across vast distances to pursue knowledge that transcended individual lifespans, when the boundary between earth and sky was not a barrier, but a conversation. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, Carry with you this final thought somewhere in the starlit silence above ancient stones. The greatest mystery of Stonehenge continues to unfold. Not in the past, but in the eternal present moment, where human consciousness meets cosmic infinity. The builders knew this truth and encoded it in stone, sound, and stellar alignment. They built their monument not just for their time, but for all time, believing that someday someone would be patient enough to listen to what the stones and stars were trying to say. That someone is you, that someday is now. And the conversation between earth and sky that began 5,000 years ago continues in every moment you choose, to look up at the night sky and wonder what secrets it might still hold. Sweet dreams, and may your sleep be filled with the ancient starlight that still guides us home